What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Believe in Falcons. I'm your host, Will McFadden. Joining me after a wild draft weekend, fullback Ovie Mughelli, who was there at the Falcons draft party on Thursday night when
Correct.
the Falcons made the selection for Bijan Robinson. And Ovie, I want to know what was the reaction like in the room when they made that pick.
Ooh, man. I'm actually embarrassed to say that my initial reaction was like, what are you doing? I am a running back, and I love running backs. We've seen time and time again for the last couple of years that you can get a great running back in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth rounds and free agency. It just we used to talk about how running backs aren't going top 5 or top 10 anymore. Gone are those days where back in my day, and they would draft a running back like that. And I was a solid 5 minutes. I was like, what are they doing? What's going on? Get like the stud defensive man. I know you have some free agency defensive help, but getting a stud defensive end that could help you. And I was, a big Jalen Carter fan as well. I was like, somebody to help Grady that's young and can grow, it's going to be cheap, is great. Again, we addressed that in free agency somewhat, but why would you not take advantage of the Georgia boy right there in front of you? I was hot, and I was talking to one of the actually Chris Draft helped me. Former Falcon Chris Draft played a lot of years in the league.
Yeah.
And he helped calm me down, and the guest I brought with me, because we were both just like, what are they doing? I don't get it. Like, he's going to be good, but we have Tyler Algiers. We have Cordarrelle Patterson. We have lots of – and so it was me, and probably half the room was like, nah. But after Chris Draft talked to me about saying every team needs a Thunder and Lightning, Algiers at certain points, he's very, very fast. Great speed for a NFL running back. But he doesn't have that breakaway speed. Like, he's not going to pull Jerish Norwood and take off and get a sliver and just go.
What a pull.
He's not. But Bijan can. And so if you can have that Thunder and Lightning with the offensive line we have, which is going to have to be the focus, being that Desmond Ridder is still Desmond Ridder. He's not Tom Brady yet. He's, may never be Tom Brady, which is fine. Teams won Super Bowls with quarterbacks that can just be game managers and be smart, take care of the ball. And I was like, okay, I feel better about it then. I was like, now I feel better. But at first, my initial reaction, and majority, I don't say majority, I'll say half of the room's initial reaction was, why? Just why?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think that was probably the reaction. Like, if you take that small sample size and extrapolate it out to Atlanta, that's probably the way a lot of people feel. And we're going to obviously dive into much more of the Bijan talk, because I've got my own personal thoughts on it. I like the pick, I'll explain why. And I think the value stuff is a little bit overblown, especially like right when the draft is happening. It's all everybody talks about. And at the end of the day, I just think they added a pretty good player to their team. So we're going to cover the Bijan pick. We're going to cover the entirety of the draft quickly and kind of go through each of the picks and just talk about, are the Falcons, frankly, a better team coming out of the bowl, right?
Yeah.
So that is what we've got today's show. But before we get into that, I just want to say that betonline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including player reports for this year's NBA playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, and they've got you covered for all of your wagering needs. That includes, like I mentioned, the NBA, and I know Ovie's Sacramento Kings facing a big elimination game today against the Golden State Warriors. Huge De'Aaron Fox guy, that Ovie Mughelli. They've also got the Major League Baseball, NHL, right on down to UFC and boxing. So BetOnline is your fast and easiest way to get all of the betting info that you need, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games, which you can play right from your home. Screw that PS5. Go play those card games on your phone. The website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action, and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your very first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, Ovie, so let's keep diving into the Bijan talk, because the value, it's almost something that I think I get the intrinsic overall. Hey, if you take a player at 5 that you could have gotten at 20 only do you have just because of the way the picks are bracketed salary wise, but also now you've potentially, cost yourself an opportunity and maybe a better player, and then you could have still regrouped and gone and gotten that player later or what have you. I understand what value means in those terms. I just think that like once we get into October 24th, nobody's sitting here saying, yeah, but this guy was picked 12th. Like we don't talk about it that way. It's like, is the player good on the field? Does he add value to your team? And is he scoring touchdowns? Is he catching passes? Is he doing all of these things? And if he scores a 2 touchdowns in a game, is somebody going to sit here and been like, yeah, but could have had him at 12? No, I don't think so. So I think at the end of the day, when you just want to have good players impact on your team. That's where I don't think this was an overall abundantly talent-filled draft. I think Bijan Robinson is one of the better offensive prospects to come out, certainly at the running back position, but maybe just writ large over the last few years. And he's going to an offense that is going to use him in a way that allows him to reach his ceiling. Not all offenses are going to do that, but Atlanta, I think, is one of the teams in the NFL that will see the best version of Bijan Robinson as an NFL player, I think, in Atlanta, or at least he's got the shot to do that. So from that standpoint, I understand all of the value stuff. I understand that for weeks and weeks and weeks leading up to the draft, we were told by guys like Mel Kiper, we were told by guys like all over the NFL media that you don't draft a running back in the top 10. Yet when December rolls around, all you seem to hear is that defense and running games win championships. So how do you square those two things? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I just think the value stuff is a little overblown. If you want to say that you would rather have Jalen Carter, that's totally fair. What I will say is that having spoken to Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot on Friday night and hearing kind of their logic and their reasoning, Bijan the person, I think they felt more comfortable with than Jalen Carter the person. I think that the self-motivation, we can trust you to do everything, the little things on your away time when you're away from the facility doing all, I think they just felt more comfortable with the player that they were getting in Bijan and the total package than necessarily Jalen Carter. Obviously, time will tell, but do you see that part of it? And as a former fullback in the league, you've got to understand and value the run game to some degree, right?
Not to some degree. I value it very highly, but as a member of the media now and a sports analyst for several years, I do also understand the business that the game of football is. And in this business, I've unfortunately seen the position I love so much be, I won't say undervalued, but in a way undervalued because we're so good. We're a victim of our own success. We're too damn good all across the board. You have so many great running backs that will show up, pop out of manholes and come out of the trees and drop down, from the mountains. We're everywhere. There are great running backs in HBCUs and Division II schools. They just need opportunities. So Tyler Algier, got 1,000 yards. Bijan, may not get 1,000 yards his rookie year. It doesn't mean he's better or worse Tyler Algier. It's going to be crowded. Having Cordarrelle Patterson, having Bijan, and having Tyler, and trying to give all them equal touches is going to be interesting. But I do hear what you're saying. I do understand that on Sunday during the fall, it's all about, can this guy help us win? And I think he definitely can. But to your other point regarding character, you're so right. You're so right. And I've been on teams, I won't name names, where the character, not only was the character not there, but these guys were a cancer, and they had their bad character rub off on their position group. They had their bad character rub off on their side of the ball.
You're talking about Bobby Petrino, right?
No, Bobby Petrino's part of them, but there are players that first year. How do you react to adversity? And there are certain players, high-profile players on the Falcons that did not care at all. I saw Algie Crumpler at a golf tournament a week or so ago, and we were talking about how that I only got 1 year Algie Crumpler, and that was that horrible 2007 Bobby Petrino year. And I was talking about Algie, what did you do? He's like, I went and spoke to Petrino 2-3 times, just like man to man. Like I'm one of the leaders on the team, perennial Pro Bowler, all that stuff. I was like, you've got to change how you deal with grown men. And he didn't want to listen to me. He said, I'm going to run this team how I want to run it. Thank you for your input, but it's not needed. I said, wow, Al, just what he said? He's like, yeah, but that's not going to stop me from trying to keep my guys up. That's not going to stop me from keeping, my team and be the leader that I want to be. And that's the type of mentality I think Bijan has. That's the type of guy he's going to be. I think Arthur and Terry were saying they want players who, mothers are happy and not ashamed to have their son grow up to be like him. Because some players you admire, but you don't necessarily want all of their you don't want your son to emulate him like the Antonio Browns of the world.
Yes.
You're like, oh,
they're not role models.
Player. Exactly. Yeah. There you go. Role model. He's a great player, but is that someone I want my kid to, imitate and take their shirt off and start throwing his hands up, walking out the field in the middle of the game? No. Bijan is not that guy, and I think he's someone who's going to make people around him better.
Yeah, I mean, his personality seems very magnetic, smiling all the time. I thought it was hilarious when he got drafted. He couldn't fit the hat on his head because the way his hair was. He says he has a big head anyway, and so he just kept you rewatch it walking out on the stage. He's just constantly pulling his hat down.
It won't go down. I mean, the man said, my mom actually called me and or texted me. She said, your pick. Did you hear what he said? Like one of the first things he's going to do is money. He's going to tithe and give it to the church. I'm like,
hell yeah.
I mean, if you don't love the guy already, just him saying stuff like that and where his mind's at, like this guy trying to give back already. That's like the first thing he wants to do is give back. So I'm excited to have him on the team. Excited to meet him in person. Happy to see that he came to a team that's going to use him. So, I'm a running back and member of the media, but I'm running back first. So I'm all for Bijan getting his.
And to your point about, Algie basically saying, look, I'm like, do what you want to do, coach, but I'm going to take care of my position group and my guys, and we're going to do things the right way.
Yeah.
In the NFL, you have to delegate that leadership out to the players. Like you do. These are grown men. You have to say, look, I have to be able to trust you to do your business all the time, but I'm not going to babysit you all the time. You're not going back to the dorms where I can just send a coach in and be like, all right, hey guys, everybody lights out. These are not children. These are grown ass men. And so you want to draft guys of character because ultimately the locker room does become a reflection of the sum of the parts within it. And you need to have enough high character guys who are going to look at each other and hold each other accountable when the coach is gone. Right. So that is what I think they're getting in Bijan. And from an on-field perspective, I tweeted this out, but I really think that you look at somebody, I know he's drawn more comparisons because of the running back title next to his name, to Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey and the versatility that they bring and how you can use them as receivers. I look at Deebo Samuel because I think that's a little bit closer of a body type. Obviously, Bijan is a running back and Deebo is a wide receiver, but for all intents and purposes, I can see so many plays where he's getting, a jet sweep and you get him out in space, or he's lining up in the slot and then he motions back into the backfield and then you're running a screen with it. Like there's just so many versatility options with Bijan Robinson, and pairing him with a coach like Arthur Smith, who I put in that Kyle Shanahan zone of just, I know what to do with the guys that I have. Like I'm such a good chef. Give me any ingredient and I'll make a great meal out of it. Yeah. And then you give him a top tier ingredient like a Bijan Robinson. I can't wait to see what they cook up.
I can't, but it's just interesting that Cordero Patterson is the same guy you compared to Deebo Samuel's like a year or 2 years ago.
But he's 31, right? Like he's not going to be here forever.
I get it, but usually you draft his replacement. Well, I guess you can draft him before he leaves, but he's already here, and the room's gonna get crowded. So that's why what do you call it? Just being a devil's advocate,
pessimistic.
Trying to see the other side of the coin, to where my initial thought, and I'm still looking forward to be proven wrong. There's a lot of cooks in this kitchen. I know you're all about cooks can make great meals out of great ingredients, but there are a lot of cooks in this kitchen.
That's a very fair point. And yeah, I think that you can definitely quibble with, hey, we just had a 1,000-yard rusher who we drafted in the 5th round. If you want to talk value, case in point right there. Like you don't even have to look outside of this roster to explain why maybe that, but nobody probably is more aware of that than the Atlanta Falcons. And you have to believe that they have a very solid plan in place for how they're going to use these guys. I expect to see, frankly, Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson, and Bijan Robinson on the field at this probably like 10 snaps a game, 15 snaps a game. Like, that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're just in
It is. I am looking forward
32 personnel,
to
like you're in 32 personnel with Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Cordero Patterson, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. You could essentially be in like 4 receiver set in 32 personnel and not really lose anything there. What are we doing? Man, that's so interesting, at least. Like, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I want to see if Cordero's going to play more wide receiver, and if they're going to kind of like H-backs, tight end, fullback. Cordero has been that tailback wide receiver, but he's been more at tailback. But now is he going to be that tailback wide receiver that's more at wide receiver? You would think so, so they can get the other 2 guys on the field, and that just opens up the playbook so much. And after being so impressed at what Arthur did last year with a team that's supposed to win 2 games and finding ways to make, Marcus Mariota at times look like he was competent, because we had, 3 or 4 games where we praised him that he was doing this and doing that. And it wasn't much he was doing, but we were winning. And so just the fact that we were on the positive side of things, everyone was, eyes wide open and taken aback and pleasantly surprised. So we already said, hey, this is what he can do with, a couple, average to mediocre players. What's he going to do when he actually has his time to choose his people and get some high level, high octane horses in there? So it's coming. Like Prime said, we coming. They coming. Somebody's coming.
Somebody's coming. The last note I'll have for Bijan, because I was reading through some of it may have been the Nerdy Birds. Matt Haley, shout out Matt Haley, Falcons comms manager, who puts together kind of a big recap deep dive with a lot of stats and also expert about the player. But it was Steve Sarkisian, Texas head coach, former Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator, who obviously coached Bijan Robinson and has a lot of the same kind of, I think, familiarity as a Kyle Shanahan, who he took over for here in Atlanta, but also kind of that Arthur Smith, the way they like to build with the ground game. And he said that he felt that Bijan's style of play actually probably translates better to the NFL than it did even college. So like the best days of Bijan may still just like the very specific elite traits that he has, the ability to string together multiple moves while not losing any acceleration, his awareness of space, because the NFL is a very big like spacing game nowadays. So just, I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out, because there's a version where you're absolutely right, and that other 50% are right at the end of the day. And after 4 years, they don't pick up that 5th year extension. We're sitting here saying, man, what a wasted opportunity. But also the flip side of that, in that even if he's not here for a decade because he's a running back, you get 6, 7 amazing years out of Bijan Robinson. And I remember what Todd Gurley did for that Rams offense for the first 3 years that he was there. Yeah. Bijan's that type of talent too. And if you get that in a weak NFC, we're talking about a Falcons team that can win 12 games and has the best rushing attack in the league. And then all of a sudden it's looking like 2004 all over again, that's what's on the table. But let's flip and move on to the second round. They drafted Matt Bergeron, who was an offensive tackle in college. It looks like the Falcons are probably going to give him a shot at left guard to begin with. He got some of the run blocking skills that I think the Falcons are really looking for. He can move up to the second level really well. So what did you think about going offense with the first 2 picks, and then specifically going offensive line in the second round?
I mean, you kind of got to. We were having a conversation. Actually, this was a rally on the runway I did.
Nice.
Yeah, childhood cancer event we raised money at, and
my wife used to work the rally.
Oh man, it's a great organization. And I saw, interestingly enough, one of my old Baltimore Ravens offensive linemen, and we were talking about the days blocking for Jamal Lewis, to where we were all such in sync. And he was saying, we didn't think you were going to be that good, Ovie. We were like, oh, here we go. Because the starting fullback got hurt, and I was my second year in the league, and here comes this Wake Forest. I mean, what what stud has come out of Wake Forest? Like, no one's like, oh my gosh, he came from Wake Forest. Oh, he's got to be good. Says no one. I was like, all right, I get it. Like, he's up. And he was like, but nah, you had the mind meld with the O-line. And he said, I'd like to think that you raised your level of play to the level that we demanded if we were going to block for Jamal Lewis, one of the best running backs in the league at the time. And they want to make sure, the Falcons do, that every single member of their offensive line is not just competent, but has the physical skills to dominate. And once they get their mind, that mind meld, once they've been able to get the ABCs 1, 2, 3s of how the Falcons play football or how they rush the ball, and they can just react, they got to have the skills to react. And Bergeron has those skills. And I think that's what's really exciting. You hear some of the commentators talk about him and the nasty streak that I remember me and you were begging the O-line and D-line to have. And the last year or two, the O-line has created this nasty streak. They've created that push. They've created that play up to and sometimes right on the line or up to the whistle, or it kind of teeter-totter on that line. It's fun because that's the only way I've played in Baltimore and Atlanta, with crazy offensive linemen and Harvey Dawes, Tyson Claybos of the world, who would just, of course, Mud Ducks of the world, who would just be so much fun to play with because these guys had your back. These guys were hooting and hollering every play. These guys were running down the field 10, 20, 30 yards, trying to catch up to Michael Turner or Jamal Lewis. Like Bergeron, just with the attitude I've seen in a couple of interviews, and it could all just be a ploy, but he seems to have that attitude, seems to have that moxie, seems to have that quiet and loud confidence when necessary. So those are the guys that I think would be a great fit for our O-line.
I think my favorite thing about Matt Bergeron and getting the chance to talk to him after he was drafted, he seems like a great dude. He made a joke about eating 30 chicken wings recently. So his listed at weight is probably wrong now. He's probably like 5 pounds heavier. So just like for his first media appearance, like seemed very laid back, very just like he understand why the Falcons were like, yeah, this fits kind of what we're building, what we're looking for in our. The most thing going back and rewatching the moment that he gets drafted, and usually, you've got these cameras that you're sticking in these high profile prospects' face, and they're sitting there with their parents, and maybe a girlfriend or a sister will like run in and jump and grab him. Although did you see Lucas Van Ness? Like they had to pull a kid off of him, basically. Like he got drafted, and I guess like his friend or his brother or whatever went like jumped on him and like
trying to get all that TV time.
Yeah, exactly. But Matt
is grabbing him.
Yeah, Matt Bergeron, like he gets drafted, he gets the phone call, immediately gets swarmed by like 15 dudes who are just like clearly like probably former teammates, close friends, like all of this stuff. And I was like, all right, this is a guy who other guys like.
Yep.
You need that on the offensive line. You need that in an NFL locker room. Like you got to be able to fit in. You got to win the trust. The other thing is that the Arthur Smith was specifically saying this about Javon Gwynn, who they drafted in the 7th round, but especially in the trenches. And you look at how heavily they invested in the defensive line and free agency in the draft, taking 2 offensive linemen. Attrition is a part of the NFL game. You're going to have guys get hurt. You're going to have guys miss 3 or 4 games. Like you just said, Ovie, they want players that have been in their system, that know what they are looking for on a play in and play out. So you're not having to bring in a guy off the street for 1 week before he has to suit up and then stick him in there next to Jake Matthews. And he doesn't really totally understand to his bones what we're doing. It's just going to cause issues. So like you're going to continue to see, I think, the Falcons draft offensive and defensive linemen in every draft moving forward, because they just want to have guys waiting in the wings who are their guys. And I think Matt Bergeron, you look at what he does in the run game, totally fits that bill as one of the Falcons guys.
Absolutely. I wish that the casual fan can just hop into the mind of an offensive lineman and see through his eyes and have, the helmet right there in front of him, and then understand how much, I think, teamwork and how much coordination it takes to do these stunts and these blitzes and these splits, and how when you're passing off a lineman, you can't leave too early, you can't hold on too late, you have to be shoulder to shoulder to your guy. The level of cooperation and how much you have to be in sync is about twice as much as you think it is. And if you don't have a guy who has the mental capability, but also has that want to, has that dog in him, it's going to mess up the whole offensive line. All those dominoes are going to fall apart. I don't care how great, Jake Matthews is and Chris Lindstrom is. These guys won't be able to play at their best if there's someone so far below them as far as talent and technique. And I think that's why they drafted Matt. I think that's why they're getting guys that they can build up and have the tools, but can develop into a potential a backup, because attrition is there and the game is getting bigger and faster guys, and injuries are not if they happen, when they happen. You just need to have somebody who can go in there and be able to hold the line until help comes back in.
Yeah, I think Bergeron will probably get a decent shot at a starting job in camp against probably Matt Hennessy is his main competition there. Maybe Jalen Mayfield, who missed all of last year with a back injury, I believe. But those three look to be in the mix. And yeah, again, like I think that Bergeron could have an inside but again, to develop. And if it's a former third round pick who ultimately gets the starting job this year, between years, like you're a little mini farm system, I think, in the trenches. And that's a good spot to be in, rather than, all right, we need to draft a starter because we have nobody else. I'd rather have two or three guys that you're deciding between, and we'll go from there. But somebody else on the other side of the equation on the defensive line, Zach Harrison, their third round pick, is another very highly rated prospect coming out. I think he was like the number 2 prospect in his entire class. Really long. You understand the athleticism and the traits and why he was probably so highly rated, but the production was never there. He's another little bit of a developmental guy who you're getting in the third round, and the upside could be there. But again, drafting in the trenches and drafting probably as part of a rotation, given all of the work Atlanta did on their defensive line, adding Calais Campbell, adding a Bud Dupree, adding a David Onyemata. Like, there's not a clear lane for Zach Harrison to be a full-time starter here, but also I don't know if he's ready to be a full-time starter. So that's where this sense, even though in the third round, maybe you're hoping to come away, like they were in the third round last year. So you're hoping to come away with a guy who maybe can be a bit more of an impact player. I don't know. What was your thought about Zach Harrison? Because this may be the one pick that I'm a little bit scratching my head about.
It's mixed, because I heard the people, again, the talking heads talking about, lack of bend and didn't have a clear pass rush, a plan on him. And these are some of the things that, they said about guys like Vic Beasley, who was horrible except for when he wasn't. And I don't want Zach to end up in Vic Beasley's shoes, where you got some talent and you may have a flash in the pan, but the majority of your career is a disappointment. No one wants that. I just think that having a Calais Campbell and having some of these guys who've done it for a long time, the Bud Duprees and Onyematas, is going to be a huge help to Zach, because he has the skills. He has the physical, tools to be amazing, and that long, lanky body and that reach that hopefully can grab a QB and pull him down. But he just got to understand how to go from a college great player to an NFL great player, which is not easy to do. And I was a 4th round pick. I wanted to start so bad my first year, rookie year. I wasn't ready. I was sitting here, I think all rookies do that, talking about
what was the biggest learning curve? What was your learning curve? Was it? Go for it.
I'd say my learning curve was real steep, because I was going against the number 1 defense in the NFL for the last 2 years. And so practicing against those guys, I felt like I was horrible. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And little did I know that it was going to get easier from here. I was playing against some of the toughest guys in the league as a group. But I still was not ready, because I was thinking too much. Gotcha. Our playbook is big in college, especially now. People, coaches are having more complex playbooks, but having to do just football, which you would think would be easier, but just having to focus on the playbook and the game plan, and being able to watch film with even more specificity and detail. It all was hard to bring together to where it's automatic. And you can't play football at a high level until it's automatic. You can't be thinking about, okay, corners coming down, safeties rotating, linebackers in the A gap, matches called an audible. No, because we would actually do this. We would call 3 plays in the huddle, and like pat the head was play A, clap your hand is play B, and wave your hands play C. And we would have to remember all 3 plays while remembering our assignment on each play, while being able to execute that assignment based on the blitzers, the defense, the who's up, who's down, and doing all that without thinking is damn near impossible unless you are just an IQ of a bazillion, or you've gotten the reps and you have a high football IQ that's able to translate it into one of the fastest moving games in the world, which is NFL, when the quarterback says hike. So it took me a while to make it automatic to where I'm just reacting. I know what I'm doing. I understand the defense. I've watched enough film. I even have graduated and know what the tight end's doing. I know the tackles block. I know how the guard's pulling. I know that if linebacker comes up, he goes up. If linebacker goes out, he goes out. And so I would adjust this way. And you're able to play that chess and be a step or 2 ahead. That's when things just like the Matrix. You start seeing the ones and zeros, and you actually play in the way you want to. That's why I wasn't ready my first year. I wasn't ready to be at my best. I could have played. I could have, been serviceable, but to be at the Pro Bowl level that I was year 3 and 4, it takes a while. And Zach, to your earlier point, I think he's going to not be. I mean, very few rookies are there, but he's definitely not going to be there the first year. Maybe not the second year, but the third year, he could be a stud.
Absolutely. I mean, again, like he's got all of the tools that you would kind of want. He's 6'5", 274, really long arms. Like he's got great upfield burst and athleticism. It's really just what you mentioned, Ovie, kind of that turn the corner athleticism. He doesn't bend very well, partially because he is so tall and he's so long. It's just hard to do, but the effort is there. The straight line speed, like he'd be the perfect player if you don't do like a split zone block on a play and you just leave the backside end unblocked and he would just chase down a running back. Like
2 steps, he'd be there. Like
exactly.
I hate those defensive ends to where I see him and I'm going through the A gap and I'm like, I hope he doesn't crash down and grab Mike behind me, because we're running to the right and we're just assuming that me and Michael Turner were fast enough and he can't do it. But some of these long, lanky guys, it's like darn alien that take 1 or 2 steps and they're there. So if he has that burst and that speed that he had in college and can translate that, unblocked, he'd be great. Unblocked, he's great.
And we don't really fully know. I mean, we can get an idea based on the New Orleans games, but we don't know fully how Ryan Nielsen plans on using all of these guys. Maybe they have a vision where, look, we want interior pressure, and then we're going to flush these quarterbacks out right to Zach Harrison, so he doesn't really have to bend the corner and turn the arc and come back to get the. Like, I don't know how they're going to use it. They obviously have a plan. Again, if they don't, then that's a totally different conversation, and then it's totally fair to be like, well, all right, why'd you make this pick? But
what are we doing?
As of right now, like, all we can do is look at like what are the raw tools, the components, his makeup, all of this stuff, and Zach Harrison has the upside and the tools to, I think, warrant a day 3 pick, even if he doesn't have a clear path to like a big role in his first year. This is more like you said, maybe in year 2, maybe in year 3, but you've got time to figure that out. Another player moving to day 3 here, who Zach Harrison, and you're looking to put it together. Clark Phillips, safety or corner out of Utah, maybe tapped out athletically, like he may already be what he's going to become, but kind of what you were saying, where it just takes time, that mental learning curve, the instincts, being able to play at full speed because you just know what you're doing and you can diagnose everything like the Matrix in front of you. People just see all those lines and they're like, what the hell does that mean? If you know how to read it, you know what it means. That's Clark Phillips to me. Like, he plays with such great instinct. You watch some of his highlights. He's breaking on, like, there's a play where he's essentially lined up in the slot and it's zone coverage and he's got the flat, and they run a real quick just out route with the receiver who he's not even lined up against, the outside receiver, and he undercuts it because he just kind of knows where he's supposed to go, and he sells that he's not going to be there to bait the quarterback to kind of throw that flat route quick. And then he just doesn't hesitate and really like look to see, is he going to get burned by a double move or anything? Breaks on the ball, makes the pick, takes off the other way. Like, he's that type of, I think, instinctive player. I think he's going to be a really strong special teams player as well. Another defender who's entering a little bit of a crowded situation. He'll probably compete with Darren Hall and Mike Hughes for that nickel spot, but they can bring him along as he's ready. I like the Clark Phillips pick. I think that I like it better than the Zach Harrison pick, even though Zach Harrison is the toolsier, traitsier prospect. I think Clark Phillips is a little bit, I could just see him being a really solid player. And I don't know if he's ever going to be like the best corner in the league or anything like that, but
he won't. You don't have to know. He won't ever.
but he just, like a little bit of the way that Brian Poole was in 2016.
Yeah.
And like he's just a real solid no corner who doesn't have to be the star of the show, but he just is going to be a liability. That to me is the upside of Clark Phillips here.
No, not being liability is huge in the defensive backfield, because those guys, you can, and I've been there, will take 15, 16 plays, grind it out, running the ball, knocking these linebackers back every single time, staying ahead of the sticks and get a touchdown by Ovie Mughelli, 2-yard fullback dive. Great. Killed the clock. Took about 6, 7, 8 minutes off the clock. All right, guys, let's sit down and take a load off. Our defense is out there. We're good. What's going on? What's going on? Why'd he fall down? What's he doing? Oh, come on, grab your helmet. Let's go back out there, because one DB that they know is the weak link and that they're going to go after every single time is going to lose games for you week in and week out, because you got to give your DBs a rest. You got to have rotation. And when you put that second string guy or third string guy, there's a little injury and he can't at the very least be reliable. That's one of the worst positions at defensive back, corner especially, to play or nickel, even if you can't do your job. And even though he's undersized, even though he's a below average athlete, that's rough to be written about you. But it's a chip on your shoulder. I'm sure it's not the first time he's heard that. If you have the instincts, like you mentioned earlier, cutting off receivers, jumping routes, and being able to win on those, then we want you, because our defensive backfield has been a liability for several years. The Falcons have, and not too many when I was played, but there was a year or two where we had it was iffy at times. We were just like rolling our eyes and like, come on. And even Jerry Snort, who's the nicest guy in the world, was saying, well, that's not good. And we can't have this happen day in, day out. Jerry's was at the draft party on Thursday, and we got to talk about our draft nights, and it was just a real fun time to reconnect with him and talk about the mindset of these rookies. I was like, when you came in, man, what were you thinking? He was like, I was just like, don't mess it up, Jerry. Don't mess it up, Jerry. Don't mess it up, Jerry. I'm like, me too. Me too. I just didn't want to get to here all the way to the league and then, mess it up. I use different language, but I was like, don't, something it up. And you didn't want to let down all the people who helped you get here. So I know all these rookies are excited as heck to get into the NFL, something they've been looking forward to and thinking about their whole lives. And now it's here. But like I always say, if I get a chance to talk to them, it's just the beginning. Rookie Symposium is no longer an NFL thing. It's a team by team thing. And I had a chance to talk at a Rookie Symposium a while back, and it literally was just hammering in the reality that this is just beginning. You have not made it. Oh, I made it. No, you haven't made it. You have started. Nothing is made. No one's going to give you that many pats on the back if you get in here and you can't wake up on time. You can't study the playbook. You can't process film. You're going to get just pulled away and distracted by the strip clubs, the hordes of girls and groupies, the spending money when you not need to, all the hanger-oners, the people who have a target in your back. You have a personal assistant who wants a personal assistant. If you get that lifestyle, get caught up in that, it's people aren't going to remember that you made the NFL. People will remember that you squandered an opportunity to play at the highest level, which is not how you want to be remembered.
And it's exactly why I think, to the earlier point when we talked about Bijan, like why the Falcons are so intentional about the character of the men they're bringing into this building, because you've got a lot of work to do just preparing to beat the other team on Sunday. You don't need that extra work of, all right, well, where's Bijan on Friday night?
Where's Bijan?
Like somebody's got to be keeping an eye on him. It's like, nah, that man's probably in a pew, like tithing his ass off. That's what he's doing. He's getting right with the Lord on a Friday game. So that's what they want. But yeah, I think it's really well said. And again, like that's the athleticism, and Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot kind of said, like, not fully explicitly, but like pretty much just if there's a toss up two guys who you have in the same category, when you're making your pick and they're kind of right there neck and neck, and you've got one guy who has better athleticism, better traits, all of this stuff, and can help you maybe a little bit more on the field, but you've got concerns about the character. And then on the other side, you've got a player who maybe could be tapped out athletically, like a Clark Phillips, or, maybe just not that rare elite athleticism, but everything else is above average or an A+ or whatever. Like they're probably going to lean more towards that guy, because you can work and develop a player. But if they're away from the facility and they're an issue, then you really impact that. And that's, I think, something that really matters to this organization. So let's wrap up real quick with the 2 7th-round picks, DeMarco Hellams out of Alabama, and then Javon Gwynn out of South Carolina. It's something that I've noticed, last 2 years, you've got your two, last picks, and they're coming out of the SEC. I think that this is a team, sometimes you get front offices that with their throwaway picks, even though that's a derogatory term, I guess, for both of these guys. Like I wouldn't want to be called a throwaway pick. Like I'm here to prove something, but they like production. They like guys who have played a lot in college. DeMarco Hellams played a lot at Alabama. Javon Gwynn played a lot at South Carolina. I think he was a starter all 4 years there. Team captains, both of them. So again, you're adding these high character guys who have a lot of reps, not this, all right, we're going to throw a dart at the dartboard and we're going to take a dude who's 6'8" and ran a 4.42 and all of this stuff, but was like a rotation player at, I don't know, UNC Charlotte. Like, let's just go ahead and get the guy who has played a lot of games against LSU and Alabama and Georgia. Like he's probably ready for the SEC. We can talk about both of these guys grouped together, but generally in your experience playing, later round guys, late 3rd round picks, have you noticed a difference between players who come from smaller schools or bigger schools, like who have that type of experience? Or is that something that kind of once you're out there on the playing field or practice field, like you don't even read about?
The slight things like you'll notice, obviously, like you mentioned, the guys who come from the SEC and the guys who have a background at a big school, they seem to watch film a little bit better. They seem to have more resources. They seem to be held to a higher standard. They seem to have more coaches to have more time, because these SEC organizations can pay to have a quality control coach, 2 assistant O-line coaches, and just more personnel to spend more time with these players, so that when it comes to picking up things in the playbook, when it comes to understanding how to grade yourself and to find where you can improve just by looking at film, the bigger schools can do that. But on the other hand, some of these smaller schools, Division 2 or 3, or the HBCUs, that they may not have some of the experience playing against larger, higher quality talent, which is very important, because that makes the jump not as much when the guy that you were able to beat last year is now the guy that you're playing in the NFL, because they were top tier talent and you beat them. And so you realize that, okay, I can play with NFL guys, versus a guy who's feeling good about himself because he's beaten some Division 2 or Division 3 HBCU guy. He's like, oh, I got so many tackles, so many sacks, and so many tackles, and so many catches. Yeah, against someone who can't even make an XFL roster. Yeah, that's not impressive. And so those guys, they're just trying to catch up. Uh-oh. My screen went black. Are you there still?
I'm still here. Keep going.
All right. So guys who are from HBCUs, Division II, Division III schools, they're going to have something that sometimes these bigger schools don't have, which is not just a chip, but they have a chip on a chip on a chip on their shoulder because they feel like you don't think I'm going to succeed. No one thinks I'm going to succeed. They're like they're doing me a favor. Like, no, like I am just as good as anybody else on this team, and I will outwork the outworkers. So I think that benefit is going to level the playing field somewhat for the HBCU guys and the smaller school guys.
Yeah, it's fair, and it's I asked you that question because I think it's something that I was very interested in when I worked for the Falcons was like, all right, so as you guys are building and assigning grades, you've got to obviously have your own preference. Like, do you prefer these traitsy dudes who you think that, all right, we get them with an NFL coaching staff and with these resources that these SEC players are coming from, but maybe to pull up Brent Grimes reference here, like a Shreveport wouldn't necessarily offer. Like, yeah, maybe the jump can then be made because they're finally getting the resources allocated to them that they haven't had before. But on the flip side, like who worked with Nick Saban for the last 4 or 5 years, who is one of the best defensive back coaches of all time, like, yeah, take that guy. Like that guy's probably already coming into the building and has some things that maybe he can share that are valuable. Like you're almost getting an extension of this great coach inside of your building. So real quickly, just, I don't know too much about DeMarco Hellams or Javon Gwynn. So I don't want to sit here and say, well, I think he can do this, or I think he can do that. I think looking at both of these guys, you're seeing the same things. Team captain, versatility. Gwynn, has played in a lot of different spots along the offensive line during his career. He even took some snaps at center at the Senior Bowl. And so they feel like he's got that inside versatility, which is important when I think they're looking at the offensive lineman because, again, injuries happen. So having somebody who could be, all right, our starting left guard got hurt. We need you to slide in there. Or Caleb McGarry gets hurt. We need you to slide in over there. Like that type of just flexibility position-wise, I think really matters, especially when you're talking about these day 3 guys. And then DeMarco Hellams, I think he's going to be another core special teams player. Like I think that they really, really focus on that third aspect of the game, special teams, to a very high degree. So that's part of the reason why, like, I don't see Zach Harrison playing a ton on special teams, which I'll leave the Zach Harrison stuff alone. He seems like a great dude. I'm excited to have him on the team, but I just still bump up against that a little bit. Let's get out of here though quickly, Ovie. Last question for you. Do we feel better about the Falcons leaving the draft than we did coming into it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. 1,000% yes. Just because with our running back thunder and lightning situation we have now, and with a offensive lineman that can be that last piece to the O-line puzzle, I think defense and run games win championships. And we did a lot of good work on defense during free agency, and we kind of solidified our run game for the draft or during the draft. And so, no, I feel good. We're definitely better. I'm really excited. I mean, I was excited at the end of last year to say, if we just keep moving forward and add the right pieces, and Terry Fontenot does what Terry Fontenot does, then we're going to be great. And I feel great, and we will be great. I think, man, I'm going to leave it alone. But, it's not impossible to think we can win 8, 9, 10 games. 9 or 10 game a season is not like something that's so crazy. In fact, I think that's what we're expecting. We're expecting this team,
I think that's
Ritter, to win, 9 or 10 games, and I think it's possible. So, especially now with this draft, so it's exciting.
It's definitely the expectation, right? I mean, like that's especially in a weak NFC South that is certainly up in shambles a little bit, and everybody is reshuffling, figuring out where they're going to fall. Like, this is the year. It's year 3, right? And I think that the Falcons, more importantly, feel really good about their roster. Like, I think that if you look and you look at not play where, there's a clear hole at middle linebacker. So you had to take a middle linebacker. Like they made some interesting picks, but I think you make those interesting picks because you feel like even without this draft, maybe you need Bijan because your offense is still lacking a little bit of that firepower, even though you've got Kyle Pitts. Like it is still lacking some of that explosive, just any type of, like, we've game maker waiting in the wings for you. I think Bijan gives them that. Yes. I think he gives them that, but almost the rest of the draft, I think you could probably like wipe it out and Falcons still probably feel comfortable going in. Like that's what a lot of these players feel like. All right, we want to get them in because we want an overall level of competition at training camp. We want to build overall roster depth. And these are guys that we think can, in a pinch, we can rely on. But mostly we're going to be relying on guys like Lorenzo Carter and Caden Ellis and David Onyemata and Calais Campbell and Jeff Okudah and Jesse Bates. Like all of those guys are the ones that really are going to be carrying the weight of this team. And that's why I don't understand a lot of the kind of grades and recaps where they're like, the Falcons have all of these holes. I think they addressed a lot of their holes in free agency, and we're used to seeing them draft for need, but this team has said time and time again, they're not going to draft for need. They just want to add good players across the board. So I do feel a little bit better about the Falcons. A lot of that has to do with that Bijan pick, because I think that Bijan is not just a running back. I know that's what the team said, but I felt that way even before they said it. I think that he's going to be used in one of the more interesting ways that we've seen an NFL player be used. Really excited to see what that is. But just for that reason alone, like I think adding Bijan to this offense, you've taken care of a lot of the defense and free agency. This can be a little bit of a spark on offense that now has Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson is your big three now. They've built the offense draft, and I think they landed one of the best players in this draft in the first round. So again, it's not about the value. I know we all talk about the value and could you have had him there at 15? To me, the point is that they have him. And when he's carrying the ball in the fourth quarter and they're trying to cement a game and he breaks one tackle on a 3rd and 4 and he gets you down, like, I don't think a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, but we could have gotten him at 10. Like I just don't think that that's going to be the case. So for that reason, I do feel better about the Falcons. I feel better about them because of this whole offseason. And again, most importantly, I think that they feel really, really solid about where this roster is.
Amen to that. No, I feel like I can't wait for the season to start. I want to see what Desmond Ridder's going to do, and what this Falcon team is going to do, man. So great draft, Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith. You guys deserve to have a adult beverage and enjoy the fruits of your labors this fall.
There you go. Anything else that you have on your mind, Ovie, before we get out of here?
No, I'm good. I got my kids flagging me down. They want to ride some bikes before Sunday's over, so I'm gonna go do that. But no, I'm excited for the season, man. I already was excited, but now I just think that I'm gonna try to catch every game I can at home to see these guys in person, because it's gonna be fun watching.
Hell yeah, dude. Amen. All right. Well, that will do it for today's episode, which as always was presented by Bet Online. Thank you for hopping on and joining me. We're going to have to figure out a time to do one of these again. I really like, as you were mentioning, just like talking to Jarius and your different kind of rookie story, doing a rookie mini camp episode with some of your old teammates and just like their experiences at rookie mini camp, or even training camp, or just like that first day walking into the building. Yeah, I'd love to do an episode like that, just like 10 minutes with some old teammates and get them on and out. So we'll have to talk about that a little bit offline. But thank you guys so much for link to today's episode. Please check out our YouTube channel, Believe in Falcons, which is up and running, and this video will be going up there as well. Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned. We will be having an episode with Danny Kelly of The Ringer, their resident draft expert, on Wednesday to kind of do what Ovie and I just did, but from his perspective and more of a national media perspective, and not so much about the Falcons fans and knowing this team inside and out. I just want to get his thoughts on some of these players. So that will be coming Wednesday. And after that, who knows? We'll figure it out, but we're hard at work. This team is. So thank you guys so much again for listening. As always, we'll see you next time, and take care.